You are listening to the BU Podcast with Michael Arrington. We discuss social justice, childhood trauma, current events, hip-hop, and so much more. Now, here's your host, Michael Arrington.
Yo, y'all, what's good? It's your man, Mike Arrington, BU Podcast. We in the building for another episode. Today I got my man, the legendary DJ Johnny Juice. You probably don't know his name. He's not a household name like he should be, but he's had his hands on some of the greatest works of hip-hop history. We'll get into that in a minute. But reason why I wanted to get Johnny on to really talk about, mental health and why it's important, one, for men, and two, why it's important in the hip-hop community, as well as have him give you some history on hip-hop. Man, he is definitely a hip-hop historian. He's been around some of the greatest artists of our time. So it's really important that he be heard, one, and two, kind of give you his perspective of things versus my perspective. I've worked with Johnny on a couple of my records. He's done some cuts for me as a DJ. And he's really, really creative, really, really talented, really, really dope. Really, really cool brother, man. He always embraced me from day one. He was kind of by proxy my introduction to Chuck D. And for those who know me, know that Chuck D was a Public Enemy was my childhood idol. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to be everything that he was when I was, 13, 14, and 15. I've come to know Chuck as a person, as an artist. I've worked with him on a record, had a chance to just kind of build with him on several occasions, man. He's a mentor of mine. And my childhood self chuckles every time I get a call from him or we exchange tweets or Instagram posts or whatever the case may be. But the relevancy to my introduction to Chuck D was through a friend of mine named Mary Maxine, who kind of made the introduction official, right? And so, but what was crazy was when I met him at this function that she threw for her birthday many moons ago, he knew who I was, right? And so I brought my Takes a Nation, 1 Million to Hold Us Back CD that I bought in '88 that I still had in my collection and had him sign it, right? And so, but before I can ask him to sign the CD, he brought a CD of mine and asked me to sign it, which I thought was super duper dope. And then that kind of spawned a relationship that we had over the course of, almost 10 years now. But Chuck has been instrumental in just kind of guiding me towards kind of some of the moves I'm making now, kind of behind the scenes, like she's giving me advice, but also put me in different situations with different artists. But one memory I have in particular, though, was when I was invited to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction party at the House of Blues here in Los Angeles. And I was in the room with every artist that I had idolized as a kid, right? So the people that I met was, I had a long conversation with Method Man. I had a long conversation with DMC from the great Run DMC. I had a long conversation with the fellas from Houdini. Long conversation with LL Cool J. I got to meet Eddie Murphy because he was there. There was so many people there at that tiny ass place in Hollywood, House of Blues, which it was like packed wall to wall, ear to ear, of nothing but, the industry's best, right? And, I was fortunate enough to be in that space, and these icons of mine were putting me on the same level as them. So it's a strange feeling for me that, my childhood idols have become my contemporaries. And I have to sometimes remind myself of that. I came a long way as an artist, but I've come even a further way as a man. And but I forget at times that I've accomplished a lot as a musician, some of the things I've been able to do independently. And no, I'm probably not a household name, but people like myself and DJ Johnny Juice are instrumental to some very historic things in this music game, man. So, but I wanted to share that story, man, and introduce you guys to people that I know and people that listen and tune in my podcast of who Johnny Juice is, why he's important to me, and why he's been instrumental in some of hip hop's best records ever. But with that being said, we're going to get into it when we get right back. This is the BU Podcast. Your man, Mike Arrington. We'll be back in a sec.
You are listening to the BU Podcast with Michael Arrington.
Yes, we are back. BU Podcast. Your boy, Mike Arrington, man. I'm here with my man, the legendary DJ Johnny Juice, man. I call him legendary, man, because he had his hands in a whole lot of hip hop history. A lot of people probably don't know how many things he's touched, and a vital part to my own career personally, man. He's been on, maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 of my records, man. And so I just always appreciated his love for the music, for love for hip hop, man, and his respect for me. So yeah, my man Johnny Juice, man. So let the people know who you are and what you do, bro.
Yo, what's up, man? My name is Johnny Juice, and I create them little plastic things you put around the ends of your sneaker laces, man. You know, I'm nice with that. I'm a musician. I'm a producer, a DJ, a b-boy, former graph writer, composer, all-around good guy, and Bronx representer.
No doubt, the BX is in the building, man. So yeah, so I got familiar with you through your work with Public Enemy, man. So tell me, man, what it was like or what it is like to work with the likes of, the legendary Chuck D and all the things that come with Public Enemy.
Well, here's the irony, because a lot of people that are associated with Public Enemy now weren't there at the beginning. So they have this attitude like, yo, man, you should be grateful to Chuck for putting you on. I'm like, you understand? When I got down with PE, they weren't anybody famous. They were just starting out like everyone else. So I didn't get put on. I helped create what they were later on. So there was a bunch of dudes just saying, yo, get on my stuff. It might blow up. We all hear that a million times from everybody.
No doubt.
As far as I was concerned, there's another group I'm doing something with. It might not go anywhere, right? So, and at the time, I had a group. It was me, a cat named MC Chillowski, and a cat named KBMC. Those dudes later will change their names to Charlie Brown and Busta Rhymes. So I was already in a crew with my 2 boys, and we tried out for Spectrum City, and we're looking for DJs and MCs to manage, and because they did radio at the Delphi University. And we knew them from there, and they also were a mobile DJ crew. We had a mobile DJ crew. So while they had a name and that was all cool, Spectrum City, they weren't Public Enemy yet. So when I got down with them, I went up to with Brown. Busta happened to be in Brooklyn visiting his pops, so he didn't come with us. So we went and tried out, but it wasn't. We thought we were going to battle as a crew, but we ended up battling individually. And I won the DJ portion, and they put me with a group called the Kings of Pressure. We got signed to Next Plateau. And then the process of all that, Chuck was like, yo, we working on an album. You want to do some scratching on it, blah, blah, blah. And Chuck would give me a ride home because it was on his way home. I didn't have a whip at the time. I was in high school. And he played me the first song, and it was My Uzi Weighs a Ton. And he's like, yo, you think you do something to this? I'm like, oh, yeah. Grabbed the Crate of Records next weekend, went and did the whole Joe Bummer's The Show album. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it started. And then Brown and Busta would continue coming up to the studio, and eventually Chuck would put them on, change their names. Because Busta Rhymes would have been, I don't know if he would have been as famous known as MC Chillowski right now.
I know Chuck gave him that name, right? Or it was around that time, but he was given that name.
He gave him the name. He gave up. He changed KBMC to Charlie Brown. KBMC stood for Crush BMC. His name is Brian. So, Crush was real big at the time. Crush.
Yeah, everybody was crushing back then.
Right. So he was Crush. So, and that's how that worked out. You know what I'm saying? So, there was a whole little movement in Long Island, and me being a part of that beginning stage of Public Enemy, it was weird because I came from the Bronx and moved to Long Island. And as far as people in the Bronx were concerned, Long Island was the country.
Right. No doubt. No doubt.
So, that's like cats that live in LA when you go to a suburb like, Ontario, Mira Loma, and they're like, that ain't LA, you know what I'm saying? And
right.
Long Island was like that, you know what I mean? And I even thought that. When I moved to Long Island, I'm like, where's the bodegas? Where's the cats on the corner? There's nobody in the corner because people in their backyards or in their basements, and
no doubt.
I never had a backyard or basement. So, culture shock. But I realized quickly there was some hip hop happening on Long Island, man. You know what I'm saying? And it changed the world, in a lot of respects.
No doubt, man. Now that you said that it changed the world, man, gets me to my next question, man. So hip hop changed a lot of lives, man. It took kids out the hood, gave them the opportunity for an outlet, man, to either get some financial stability that they probably would have never had, give them opportunities they never would have had, or it gave them at the very least, like a wealth of experience, man. But in that, man, comes a lot of different issues, man. When you take somebody from, like you just said, it's a culture shock, right? It's, you go from the Bronx to now you on tour in Japan or you on tour in Europe. You know what I'm saying? It's a culture shock, man, especially when you're young, you don't have that many experience to really, to kind of bounce that off of, man. So what do you say to that era? Like, let's say, take me back to let's say 87 and what that era was like versus what it's like now.
Well, first of all, obviously there was no internet.
Right.
So your exposure was limited to your actual real life experience traveling or stories from cats that that been outside the block. I'll be honest with you. I know people that never left their 5 square, block radius. You know what I'm saying? Like I never left it,
Right.
I know cats that never been, that live in the city that never been to the Empire State Building. I'm like, dude, that's a train ride. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
Or the World Trade Center before it collapsed, I'm like, yo, that's right there. But they never went. They stood uptown, I know people in Long Island, like Son of Berserk. I love them dudes, man. And I would try to bring them into Manhattan to do shows. And they were like, nah, I don't really know that much about Manhattan. I'm like, yeah, it's 30 minutes away, man.
Right, right.
So back in the day, we used to train hot. I used to go everywhere. And I was in the Bronx. I'd dip down to Manhattan, go to 110th and Lex, Battle Cats, because I was a B-boy first.
Right.
Currently I'm the vice president of first generation crew, the Bronx Boys. 2 of our members created Rocksteady in 79. So, we precede even that. And I was a B-boy. That's what I did. And in order to make a name, just like graffiti writers, you had to have what's called fame.
Right.
So graffiti writers do it by getting up. They throw a piece up on a train and it travels throughout the city, or they throw up, some throw ups, markers on buses, whatever it is. As a B-boy, the only way you get in the name is you got to travel outside your comfort zone. You got to battle.
Right.
So I did that. I did that. And then when I moved to Long Island, I was definitely rocking trains because I was going to the Bronx every weekend. I hated Long Island at first. So I'm like, this is whack. I got to go home. Learned about the Long Island Railroad, then learned about taking trains uptown, and I was all throughout the city. And I was fortunate to visit other states, when I was a kid.
Right.
Went to Florida, had some family in Cali. Matter of fact, I mentioned Mira Loma in Ontario because my aunt and her family lived out there.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, she passed away last year from COVID, but her family, all of them have master's degrees, all of her kids, and they're all teachers in the greater LA area.
Okay,
so visit. Yeah, great people. But I had that exposure. I was able to go to California, went to Vegas a few times, went to Toronto. Now you don't have to go anywhere. You can go online and you can do a virtual tour of any country you want. Not only that, you could actually establish communication with somebody that lives there. And you're able to talk to an actual person that lives in Brussels or that lives in Marseille, France, or someplace that you've never been, and you can literally ask them, yo, what it's like being there, and they'll send you stuff. So your exposure, to different cultures and music and things of that nature is exponentially, increased due to our technology.
Right. Yeah, that's how I was able to prosper, man. Like right around MySpace, I set up my first tour in Europe just based off people on MySpace hitting me up. I didn't even know my music was being played in Europe at the time, bro. So when they would hit me up, like, yeah, when you coming out here, I was like, man, set it up. I'll be out there as soon as I can get out there, right? And so I was able to, do my first tour out there, man. I was with De La Soul. I was with the Roots. I was really kind of